All right, welcome back to the channel. Keith, one-time Thurman, clowns Terence, Twitter fingers Crawford, and has a very good interview on the Boxing Voice about several things. Let's talk about what Keith Thurman had to say about Terence Crawford in the welterweight division in this video. All right, welcome back to the channel. Keith, one-time Thurman, Terence Crawford, Errol, Spence, Danny Garcia, Shawn Porter, Rodney Zugas, Manny Pacquiao. I could go on for a couple, 3-4 more names about very, very good fighters in the welterweight division that if matched up, could make tremendous fights. Keith Thurman is a former WBA and WBC champion who recently lost his WBA championship to the Hall of Fame legendary talent Manny Pacquiao in his last fight. He gave an interview on the Boxing Voices podcast, which I do believe you can get through Patreon, or they might have uploaded. Actually, they uploaded it to their YouTube channel today, so you can go and check it out. But it was a very entertaining interview. Keith Thurman is a really, really funny guy, man, but he really does crack a good joke, man, clown on Terence Crawford, man. And he says after this interview, you can expect Terence Crawford to be tweety, to be hitting up that Twitter, complaining about what he had to say. Now, but what did Keith Thurman have to say that was tweety, Twitter finger worthy? He said that he believes that a fight between himself and Errol Spence, or a fight between himself and Terence Crawford, is a better fight, a more entertaining fight than Errol Spence Jr. Versus Terence Crawford. Now, if he would have said that 2 years ago, 2.5 years ago, yeah, that, I think that somebody could make an argument about that. But obviously right now, the big fight in the welterweight division is Errol Spence Jr. versus Terence Crawford. That's the one everybody is talking about. But the reason that is because of things that Keith Thurman did and did not do. So the things that he did not do was he did not fight for 21 years. The things that he did do was have a very tough fight with Josecito Lopez, and then lose to Manny Pacquiao. But, in most things in the world, people have reasons why they believe that happened. Keith Thurman laid out his reasons why he had the performances that he had against Josecito Lopez and against Manny Pacquiao was a way to explain and justify the belief that he can move forward and beat the rest of these guys when he's all the way right. So, what were the reasons that he gave? He said first that he had the 21 month layoff, and he said during that point in time. Now the layoffs were because of injuries, right? Shoulder injuries, hand injuries, different type of injuries that he had that he felt that he needed to take that time off before he could get into the ring. Some people believe that those are legitimate excuses. Those were legitimate reasons. Many people think it's just a way to have gotten out of the fight with Errol Spence Jr. and that he just kind of got into prima donna mode for a little while, man. And now the naysayers' opinion of the matter was a little bit justified because of the fact that he ran off to Nepal and got married, and is showing pictures of him playing the flute on a mountaintop. That type of stuff. But the things that he talked about with the Josecito Lopez was that he was still injured. He said he was still injured. His left hand was not all the way back, so he really couldn't sit down on his punches. But he also mentioned that he had gained, because of the layoff, he had gained 25 pounds, and he had to lose all of the 25 pounds for the Josecito Lopez fight. So, similar to what happened with his rumored to have happened with Errol Spence Jr. and Mikey Garcia, and Errol Spence Jr. and Shawn Porter, he had to spend the majority of his time losing losing the weight and not necessarily being able to focus on the strategy that he would take and the game plan for the fight and practicing and mastering what he would do to actually beat the guys. And I think I think that's a fairly reasonable, that's a reasonable explanation for the difficulties he had with Josecito Lopez, because he was dominating. He beat the first half of the fight. He was beating Josecito Lopez going away. In my opinion, they dropped him in the whole 9. And then in the second half of the fight, his conditioning looked, it looked like it started to suffer. It didn't really look like he had a game plan other than to kind of stay out of the way and score points from the outside. One of Keith Thurman's big things that he likes to do is to really get you, with that, because he's got a really big right hand, and because that means he didn't take the name one time for no reason. If he cracks you with that right hand, dude, he can't hurt you. He's got very good power in that right hand. So it seemed like he was just kind of staying out of the way, looking for an opportunity to land that right hand. And as a result, Josecito Lopez was walking him down and scoring shots to the body, and people thought that it wasn't the best performance for him. But that performance that wasn't that great wound up paying off for him in that he looked just vulnerable enough for Manny Pacquiao to say, yeah, right now, that's a good time to get Keith Thurman. Undefeated, he's got the belt, he's not on the top of his game. Let me jump up in there and fight him. Now I'm putting words into his mouth, obviously, but in effect, that's what he did. And so he goes in there, has a fight with Manny Pacquiao, and he loses it. But he said that the same thing had applied to him in the Manny Pacquiao fight, as the same thing happened in the Manny Pacquiao fight that happened in the Josecito Lopez fight, and then he blew up 25 pounds. And then he had to lose that 25 pounds to get in there with Manny Pacquiao, and didn't really have a game plan for Manny Pacquiao. So, that's reasonable. Now, he was mentioning that as far as going forward, that he believed that he can still beat anybody in 147 pounds. As long as he has the time and the ability to get, to make sure that, his left hand is good. Now, what he was doing, and I remember him having reported this from, having said it before we went into this containment situation, that, he was starting to put more power, more stuff behind his left hand. And, he felt like his left hand was healed, and he was going to be able to test it, more and more in sparring and really get ready for the next fight. But now that according to this, what he said in this interview was, but now that, all of this stuff happened and he's quarantined and the gyms are shut, that he really hasn't had the ability to do that. So, he doesn't know where that is, but he believes that he'll still be able to beat all these guys at 147 pounds. Now, this is my take on the matter. I think that all personality stuff aside, all ponytail stuff aside, and the ducking of Errol Spence Jr. aside, the fight with Shawn Porter versus Errol Spence Jr. to me did show something. Terence, Keith Thurman has, of all the welterweights, besides maybe it's either him or Errol Spence that has the best wins at welterweight. Having beaten Danny Garcia and having beaten Shawn Porter, having beaten even Josecito Lopez, and I think he put up a good performance against Manny, and good enough where I thought, if he was all the way healthy and if he was really at the top of his game, I think he would have beat Manny Pacquiao in that fight. So I say that to say that Keith Thurman should still be considered a top, very dangerous welterweight, and I do believe that eventually that he's going to get his hands back on the belt, because I'm a believer that Errol Spence Jr. sooner than later is going to move to 154 pounds. Not from anything that I've heard personally from anybody or nothing that I've heard him say, just looking at how long he's been, similar to Terence Crawford, where Terence Crawford began his fights, because I'm reviewing all of the available Terence Crawford fights for a project right now. Similar to when Terence Crawford came in to the pros, and he was still fighting in club fights in Colorado. Those club fights he was fighting in Colorado were at 100 and were at basically at 140, 144 pounds. Then he went back down to 135 pounds for his championship fights, but then he bounced back up to a 140 pounds once the time came. I think that's the same scenario for Errol Spence Jr. That Errol Spence Jr. had a few fights he never had a club fight. He's never had a club fight. He started off on one of the better Golden Boy tickets. So Errol Spence ain't never had a club fight that I can see. But when he was fighting in those early Golden Boy promoted matchups, he was fighting at 154 pounds. And then when it was time to fight for the championship, he dropped down to 147. So I see him going back up to 154 before too long. But Keith Thurman, I think, unless Keith Thurman has to go to 154 pounds and when that crop of 154s go to 160, the ones that are going to go, man, I think that Keith Thurman can be competitive with anybody there. I think he'll be able to be competitive and still has the ability to beat Shawn Porter, Danny Garcia. I don't think he's going to beat Terence Crawford, but I don't think that fight's ever going to happen. But that's what he had to say, man. I do believe that Keith Thurman is a solid fighter. I don't think he's a solid fighter. I know he's a solid fighter. I believe he's an elite fighter. But what he's going to have to do is he's going to have to heal up because hey man, if you're just going to be if you're chronically injured and it's just one thing after another, that's when your time is up, man. There's just too much wear and tear on your body. Anyway, you let me know what you think in the comment section. And with that, I'm out. Peace.